Laying her hoof on the disheveled cloth, she noticed that it matched the color of her coat perfectly. Scootaloo quickly tore off 2 patches and grabbed the rubber cement on the table in the middle of the room. With a dab of paste on her flank, she slapped the patches of fabric on and fluttered her wings, hoping the air would help it dry. It felt kind of icky and smelled a bit funny, but it was the perfect disguise. For now. "This is gonna be fun," a familiar country voice called from the outside, followed by a pair of giggles. The treehouse door flew open as Sweetie Belle and Apple Bloom entered. Startled, Scootaloo quickly tossed the jar of glue in a nearby toy chest and looked back at the fellow Crusaders with an awkward smile. "Hey, Scootaloo! I'm glad you're here," Apple Bloom greeted her orange companion. "Did you bring the rope?" Scootaloo completely forgot their plans for this evening. Sweetie Belle was supposed to get some life vests. Apple Bloom was supposed to gather some water skis. Scootaloo was supposed to get the rope? The orange Pegasus asked, realizing her blunder. Sweetie Belle and Apple Bloom looked at each other before rolling their eyes. It was Scootaloo's idea to try water skiing at the lake, but she was the one who forgot her part of the supplies. "Don't worry about it, Scoots. I think I have some extra rope in the barn. Let's go." Apple Bloom cheered as she left out the front door. Sweetie Belle sniffed the air and left out behind the earth filly. "Does anybody smell glue?" After a quick detour to Sweet Apple Acres to borrow some rope, the 3 Cutie Mark Crusaders headed for the lake. "I'm not too sure about this, girls," Scootaloo commented with a shaky voice. She was sitting in a makeshift dinghy, while Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle were securing their life vests. Normally, the little orange filly would be jumping at the chance, like this, to do yet another act of daredevilry. But this time was different. Already having her cutie mark, she felt a bit bothered by doing something so reckless. But deep down inside, she knew she had her work cut out for her. It didn't feel right, though. "Girls," the Pegasus called out, trying to get the attention of Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle, who were preoccupied with securing their ropes on the tiny boat. The yellow earth pony finally broke out of her concentration and looked up at Scootaloo, tilting her head. "What's gotten into you, Scootaloo? You've been acting funny since the treehouse," Apple Bloom complained. "It's nothing. I just thought we should try something less dangerous." Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle looked at each other before looking at Scootaloo in concern. "You okay, Scootaloo?" Sweetie Belle asked. "This was your idea." "I know, it's just that..." Before Scootaloo could finish her sentence, Apple Bloom gave her a hard slap on the flank, causing the orange pony to rev her wings like a motor, and the tiny boat reeling through the water. The remaining 2 Crusaders secured themselves to their water skis and gripping the quickly unraveling ropes tightly. "Apple Bloom?" Sweetie Belle asked, causing her friend to look at her. "Have you noticed something different about Scootaloo?" "Nah, she's probably just feeling Whoa!" The yellow earth pony tried to answer before she was yanked into the water by her ropes. Sweetie Belle simply blinked her eyes in confusion. "A bit yeah!" The unicorn tried to repeat before being pulled along with her friends. "You guys okay back there?" Scootaloo shouted over her shoulder while steering the tiny sailboat. With no answer, she woefully looked back at the expecting 2 vacant ropes slapping along the turbulent waters. But instead, she saw Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle holding on tightly, skimming the water, waving back and smiling. "Yeah, we're okay. Scoots, punch it!" Apple Bloom called out, pumping her free hoof in the air. "Yeah, punch it!" Sweetie Belle parroted with a cracking voice. Scootaloo turned her attention back to the waters with a determined look in her eyes. "Okay, hold on!" Fluttering her wings and giving off the sound of a commercialized size motor, the creaky boat shot through the waters at high velocity. Both Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle laughed and began weaving between each other along the waves. "Scootaloo, Scootaloo, the ramp! Apple Bloom called out, pointing to the old wooden incline resting in the water ahead. Giving a quick nod in acknowledgement, the orange Pegasus pulled the tiller, steering towards the ramp. Suddenly, she felt a familiar feeling, almost like lightning shooting from her wings. Oh no. The boat began skipping against the water rapidly as arcs of purple lightning danced from Scootaloo's wings and along the vessel. Fragmented pieces of wood began to shoot off the sides of the small boat, and the wind sail began to tear and dishevel. Creaking sounds began to moan from all around the orange Pegasus. Suddenly, the jib unraveled and shot up into the air. Whatever happened during the race was happening again, and she couldn't control it. Scootaloo, what are you doing? Slow down! Apple Bloom cried out, bouncing against the waters violently. But it was already too late. With a loud explosion of thunder and purple lightning arcing wildly, the little boat shot through the waters like a torpedo, pulling the two Crusaders in tow, holding on for dear life. Desperately trying to regain control, Scootaloo strained herself to stop her little wings, but to no avail. With nothing left to do, the orange filly gripped the mast of the tiny boat as if it were a lifeline, and gritting her teeth. This is gonna hurt. A plum-coated mare sat lazily under the shade of a tree at the end of the lake, cradling a dark bottle. Scratching at her grape and strawberry cutie mark, the mare let out a loud yawn. Just as her misty eyes opened, she caught the glimpse of a small boat arcing into the water with two fillies in tow. Her eyes followed the whole event and winced at the sight of the boat crashing into the lake, shooting up a pillar of water. Letting out a hiccup, the mare took a swig of her bottle and looked at the label in admiration before passing out, with her eyes rolled into the back of her head. Apple Bloom's head shot up from under the murky waters. Coughing up water and gasping for air, she looked around frantically to find the other two Crusaders. The only thing in direct sight was the capsized boat drifting along the waters. The sky had begun to darken, and thunderclouds could be heard echoing in the distance. Scootaloo! Sweetie Belle! The yellow earth filly called. But there was no answer. Taking a deep breath, Apple Bloom pedaled towards the boat's separated masts and called out again. Sweetie Belle! Scootaloo, can you hear me? Over here! A familiar cracked voice called out. Apple Bloom looked behind her to see Sweetie Belle hugging a plank, waving. Where's Scootaloo? The earth pony called out. Sweetie Belle shook her head, causing Apple Bloom's eyes to widen with distress. Inhaling deeply, the yellow filly dove into the water and looked around frantically. Several yards away, she could see a blurry orange body sinking. Apple Bloom swam fast as she could to catch up with the rapidly sinking mass. Before she could get anywhere near her friend, a light purple energy enveloped the young Pegasus, pulling her to the surface. Apple Bloom rubbed her eyes in disbelief as the energy... Apple Bloom rubbed her eyes in disbelief as she swam back up for air. The earth filly looked around, but there was no sign of Scootaloo or Sweetie Belle in the water. The waves intensified as Apple Bloom happened to look to the shore to see a small beach, and Scootaloo lying lifelessly while Sweetie Belle was giving her chest compression. With all her might, she swam to her friends again against the crashing waves and made it to the beach. Is she gonna be okay? Apple Bloom asked in concern, galloping along the beachhead. Sweetie Belle stopped her compression and laid a cheek near Scootaloo's muzzle before looking up in concern. I don't know yet, Sweetie Belle whimpered. She's not breathing. Apple Bloom began to pace around nervously, but not just in concern for Scootaloo. Something else was bothering her. That mysterious light that rescued the Pegasus. She couldn't get it out of her mind. Sweetie Belle, when I saw Scootaloo sinking below, I couldn't get to her because of the currents. But there was this weird light that seemed to pull before Apple Bloom could get her point across, Scootaloo's body convulsed as she sat up and spewed out a river of liquid. The orange filly looked around sleepily before a moment of falling back unconscious, breathing but unconscious. "I think she's going to be okay," Sweetie Belle said with tears gathering up on the outer corner of her eyes. Apple Bloom sighed in relief and sat down next to the unconscious Crusader and brushed the wet purple mane out of her face. "Hey, what's that?" Sweetie Belle asked, pointing to Scootaloo's flank. Apple Bloom narrowed her eyes to see what she was looking at. What looked like a part of the filly's coat peeling off. The two Crusaders exchanged glances before Sweetie Belle peeled the wet fabric off to reveal... "A cutie mark!" Apple Bloom exclaimed. Apple Bloom looked back up at Sweetie Belle and could have sworn she was smiling, but looked just as shocked when she made eye contact with the Earth Pony. Soon the awkward silence was broken up by Scootaloo beginning to groan and stir, causing both Earth and Unicorn fillies to divert their attention back to their fellow Crusader. What happened?" Scootaloo asked groggily while stumbling to her hooves. She looked to her two friends, who were looking back at her blankly. Then it hit her. They weren't staring at her, they were staring at her cutie mark. The sudden shock of being found out hit Scootaloo with mixed feelings of guilt and uncertainty that almost knocked the wind out of her. It wasn't just the mark signifying her special talent anymore. It marked the end of the Cutie Mark Crusaders. "I guess this is it, huh?" "It's probably for the better. It was fun while it lasted," Scootaloo said flatly, turning around with her head lowered. Without even looking back, she began walking up the sandy incline of the beach. "For the better?" Sweetie Belle asked in confusion. The Unicorn looked at Apple Bloom, but she was already gotten up to confront the Pegasus. "Scootaloo, wait!" Apple Bloom called out. Scootaloo never turned back to say anything. The yellow Earth Pony caught up to her and placed a hoof on her shoulder. The Pegasus snapped back with unexpected hostility. "Leave me alone!" Scootaloo barked in anger. "I know you don't want to be around me anymore." "What are you talking about?" Apple Bloom asked, genuinely concerned. She reached out for Scootaloo again, but was pushed down the sandy hill by the stubborn Pegasus. Completely shocked, Sweetie Belle could only react by placing her front hooves over her mouth and letting out a silent gasp. She was used to seeing Apple Bloom and Scootaloo fighting, but this time was different. It scared her. Seeing her friends fighting like this, Sweetie Belle worked up the courage to speak up. "Scootaloo, stop it!" the Unicorn interjected with a cracked voice. Sweetie Belle walked between her two fellow Crusaders and stared at the orange Pegasus with eyes dilating with emotion. "You don't have to go anywhere. Look." "No, you look," Scootaloo interrupted, sighing with dejection. "I'm leaving because I want to. Don't make this any harder." "You don't have to go. Just look." Frustrated, Scootaloo pushed Sweetie Belle down the hill, sending her crashing into Apple Bloom. Unable to bear the sight of her two friends struggling to stand up, the Pegasus looked away, clenching her eyes shut. If she was going to get her point across, it was going to take drastic measures. "Don't you get it? I don't want to hang out with you. You..." The Pegasus stammered, unable to contain her tears. Scootaloo drew in a labored breath and shouted something she never wanted to say to another pony, let alone Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle. "Blank flanks!"